Well, we had ourselves another fabulous week of Flesh and Blood as the U.S. National Championship took place in one of the Twin Cities, and my dog walks in the door, of course. Nevertheless, at the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, we saw history be made as Colin Erickson took down the entire tournament with an undefeated classic constructed record on Gravy Bones. That's right, Gravy Bones was the major victor and of course piloted and sailed to the zenith of the tournament by Colin Erickson, an avid Kasai of the Golden Sands player, and might I add, perhaps the OG, in my heart at least, pirate hero. Because let's be honest, what's more piratey than swinging swords and stealing gold so that you can hire a crew? And that's exactly what Kasai did, and that's exactly what Colin Erickson did to win the U.S. National Championship this weekend. So congratulations to him. And it wasn't just his story on display this past weekend, because the top 8 was full of drama. Let's take a look at that top 8. First things first, for those that didn't watch the actual tournament, go back and watch this top 8. It was all day full of fantastic flesh and blood. I mean, look at the top 8 breakdown and look at how it actually ended up playing out. At the top of the bracket, you had the 1 versus 8. It was Colin Erickson in the 8 seed versus Matthew Gump in the 1 seed. Matthew Gump played an entirely unblemished tournament up to that point, but ended up being felled by Gravy Bones, which is an unfavored matchup. Fi into Gravy Bones. Fi feels pretty good about that, and yet Colin Erickson found his way through that matchup and unfortunately had to stare down Ashlyn Slattery as another Fi versus Gravy, and ended up picking that one up in perhaps one of the most dramatic comebacks we've seen on stream in recent memory, making his way into the finals. But of course, you can't forget that there was a brand new version, or I should say 2 brand new versions, if you will, of Acilio on display as well. You had Aaron Grace and the 5th seed, as well as Majin Bay in the quarterfinals, up against another brand new deck, and sort of a deck that no one really knew what to do with. Jonathan Magnuson showed how you could play Ziggy at a high level on what is essentially release weekend, and made it into the 2nd seed in the top 8, which is patently absurd and exciting. And I really thought once Jonathan Magnuson made it into the semifinals that he was going to go all the way up to the finals, and that we were going to see Colin Erickson versus Ziggy Starlight. It was Gravy versus Ziggy. Someone in chat was like, it's 2 illusionists, and I'm like, I can't disagree to some degree with that assessment, but it wasn't to be, because Ryan Rich, the classic fatigue giant attack to finish things out, Victor Goldmain, made it through in a very slogfest style matchup, and one that I thought was going to be, relatively punchless by the end of it. Ended up being another back and forth affair. This was an incredible top 8 tournament. If you haven't watched it, I'll say it again, go back and watch day 3 of the coverage. It was expertly casted. It was fantastically put on by the coverage team. It was a great weekend of Flesh and Blood. But it doesn't stop there, because the other thing we have to talk about is Silver Age. And of course, the bugbear, I don't know what you call that. What the story, the elephant in the room, of course, has been, and I think may continue to be, Briar, and how you deal with Briar in this format, because she is potent, she is powerful, and she is the deck that everyone looks at. But here's the crazy part about it all, is people are taking that challenge that was sent down from on high, figure out this new puzzle of a metagame, and they are taking it to task. Because I want to just show you this as I pull this up live. Here is the day, the round 1. I shouldn't even say day 1, because it was only 1 day tournament. The Sunday Showdown, which of course was in Silver Age. This is the round 1 pairings, so that we can see all players before anyone drops. And if we actually search for how many Briars there were 92 Briars. And I did some quick math. I think there were about 360 players. 92 Briars makes up about 25.5%. Okay, if my numbers are off by a little bit, sue me, I guess. You could do that down in the comments below. Either way, it makes up about 25% of the meta. So what does this mean? It means that Briar is that deck that everyone is considering or is just straight bringing. You're either thinking about how you beat it or you're bringing the deck itself in question. The next couple of heroes that were as populated as that were Blaze, with a precipitous drop-off, I think less than 15%. I think it was like 14, 13, maybe even 12%. Icelander was popular. As I was doing some searching, Oldhim started to creep up a little bit from where it was. Fi was relatively popular, but there was not a hero like Briar that gobbled up the play percentage that you see here. But here's how the top 8 actually ended up breaking down. This is the final standings of the top 8. And of course, there is a Briar in the top 8. And of course, it would be Nathan Crawford. That is super cool. But alongside of Briar are a whole host of heroes that try to beat Briar. Okay, you've got Blaze, which I have over the past week and a half just really come around to the fact that this is a pretty decent matchup for Blaze. Blaze into Briar. If Briar has some amount of, like life gain, then it does get a little bit better for Briar, but I would not want to sit in the Briar seat into Blaze, and it's looking like that's starting to kind of ring true. But there are a bunch of other heroes that make Blaze have a lot of trouble that also make Briar have a lot of trouble. Look at Oldhim and Oldhim, 2 copies sneaking in, one of them being Brody Spurlock. And Bravo Flattering Showman, instead of trying to fatigue the Briar, Bravo just dominates a bunch of disruptive attacks and tries to win the game. And then finally, you have heroes that prey on the answer to Briar. If Guardian is the answer to Briar, then Dromai, then Enigma, those are heroes that could possibly answer. And I should even say if Icelander, preys on Briar, which by the way, Guy Cohen on Icelander. I thought Guy Cohen was going to be on Dromai, but on Icelander, pretty solid choice as well. Dromai has the capacity to maybe play on both of those axes. I really don't believe that Dromai has a great matchup into Briar, but I could continue to be proven wrong, as I was when I was worried that Briar would make up 2 to 3 copies in every top 8. It's looking like I was wrong, and I am happy to eat my words, eat my hat, and play into this new puzzle, because the puzzle now becomes Briar is the deck you have to respect. All of these, like Oldhims and Bravos and maybe even a Valda here and there, or a Terra, all of these Fatigue Guardians or Aggressive Guardians are trying to answer Briar and at the same time answer Blaze. What do I play to answer those? That's the new puzzle that we have been presented by LSS in the Silver Age format, and the Silver Age format is not dead by a long shot, because this is a new puzzle. And I do want to take a moment to look at a couple of these lists. So if you were just kind of taking my word for it, I want you to not, because we actually have access to these lists thanks to the fine folks at Fabrary. This is Zachary Sukumel's Sunday Showdown first place winning list. He won the showdown off of this, and it looks exactly as you would expect. It's got AB3, it's got blocking equipment, but it dominates attacks like Boulder Drop, Cartilage Crush, Choke Slam, Debilitate, all attacks that you have some play if they hit, a Briar, for example. And then you're playing Arcane Polarity, you're playing Oasis Respite, so you're respecting the wizards of the format, and you have some blocking ability as well. So you can play aggressively, you can play defensively, you can play Pummel, and that is always a good thing in a low health format. And it ends up just sealing the deal and winning the tournament. So congratulations on that. But it had to go toe-to-toe with Brody Spurlock's Hard Fatigue Oldhim. And this is honestly what I was most afraid the meta was going to shift to, because this is the natural answer to Briar, but it is toxic AF, okay? If you want a deck that everyone will hate for every minute of every round, this is the deck for you. If you want to take everything to time, and then win in fatigue, then congratulations, you can have your wish right here because it's AB5, baby. We got AB3, you got Arcane Lantern, and you've got Enclosed Firemind. And then you can swing Sledge in the normal matchups, and you swing Titan's Fist and Arcane Lantern into your Wizard matchups. You're playing Polarity. You're playing all the life gain cards that are still legal in the format, like Blessing of Patience. Brush Off is in this deck. All of the yellow block suite is in this deck because if you wanted your opponent to throw up in their mouth, you have the tools for them to do so. Fruits of the Forest. This is, like I said, this is Brody Spurlock's list. I'm interested to see if an Oldham list comes about that starts to lean more into ice, but it looks like that's just not even necessary. With the power invested in these, Clash cards, these 4-block Guardian yellow pitch cards, maybe you don't even need to lean into the disruption, and you can kind of just force the Briar to try to pitch stack you, and then you just kind of blow them up over the course of a long game. And then you do this exact same thing to a Blaze who doesn't have as much pitch stack ability. This is what I'm most terrified of. But the meta will have to shift to answer this type of deck. Continuing on, you have Icelander. This is Guy Cohen's Icelander running the cheeky one of Drag Down alongside of a bunch of what you would expect, big attacks, and it's a good number of them. You've got Ravenous Rabble, Scar for a Scar, Wounded Bull, Look Tough, Fyendel's Fighting Spirit, and Chest Puff. So it is a large swath of physical attacks alongside of the likes of Emeritus Scolding. If you see Red Emeritus, you can always expect Blue Stir the Aether Winds. If you don't see this, then sometimes they're not running Blue Stirs. But the moment you see this, you know that you have to calculate your range at 6 + 1 is 7. And then sometimes, of course, if they have the resources, 8, which you should because this costs 2. This costs 2, and then you would have 2 blues pitched. You'd have access to Crucible there. So you always have to be ready for an effective range of 8 + 3 is 11. So you can dive very quickly to a deck like this. This is a fantastic deck to pick up and try out for yourself if you're looking for an answer to maybe some of those slower decks in the format. Splitting your damage like a Rune Blade is a way to answer a Guardian, for example. Now, continuing on, we have Luke Manship's Dromai deck, and spoiler alert, this looks very similar in a lot of respects to last week's Dromai deck as well. And Dromai is starting to prove me wrong and maybe just has like the legs in this format. I just don't know how this is going to stand toe-to-toe with some of those Guardian like slop, tons of popper decks. That's where I always struggled. You have to play very well, and I had played those matchups for ever in CC, so I knew how those matchups went, and I could play them to a winning state for Dromai. But for the the 30 popper decks, the ones 30 out of 40 cards are poppers, that's where things get really, really ticky-tacky. Time Snap Potion as an include plus Passing Mirage is almost a must. Like, if you don't have those cards, I don't know what you're doing with your life. But this is another great deck that perhaps has play into Briar. I don't know. I think the Briars might have eaten themselves in the Swiss rounds, and then you just kind of play really clean and try to get dudes on the board, as it were, and try to win quick in those games if you can, versus Briar. Nevertheless, Dromai making it in is no small feat. Same thing with Enigma. Again, in a format where there's a lot of Guardians, if you can put stuff on the board and make them have to play a clear game, you might be doing okay. And that's kind of what we see here. Hyper defensive. You've even got Essence of Ancestry Body. You've got Red Brothers in Arms so that you can have a pitch outlet for another like block 4 type card. You've got On the Horizon. Oasis is in here, of course, as you would expect. I mean, it's got everything that you would expect if you were looking at a low-powered Enigma deck, but it is powered up from some of the new cards from Omens, like Clear Conscience, which is not a popper card, it is a fragment card, so it's even better into the Guardians of the meta currently. This would be a deck that I would also be scared to look at, but as a Blaze player, I might feel pretty comfortable bringing in some attacks and then just chucking Arcane plus attacks and making them try to deal with all that I can muster. I don't know. This would be a fun one to try and run into. I haven't played against an Enigma as Blaze in quite some time. Speaking of Blaze, come on, this is a solid list. In fact, this is almost card for card the list from last weekend's showdown. I'm pretty sure, I don't think the blue cindering was in this previous list. A couple of things that I do love. Yeah, this even has the 1 Aether Sling, 1 red Whisper of the Oracle, which I think is cute. I think everybody, if you're playing Blaze, you need to be on red dampen and blue dampen in the main board. I am playing them in the main board. Later this week, I will make a full video of my version of the list. Spoiler alert, it's not too far off from this, but it does have a significantly different sideboard, and I will be making adjustments for a Guardian-centric meta because I have found that I don't have to do very much for this to be solid into Briar. So this is Drew Bosco's list that took to a quarterfinals finish. And rounding things out, we've got another version of the kind of slow fatigue Oldham, but this one's a little less so in that it's got AB4, and it has 1 Arcane Polarity. It's running 2 Oasis, and this one has some more big popper type attacks. It's got Boulder Drops, it's got Colors of Aria, which is a popper, spoiler alert. It's got a lot of good blocking. This one has a blue base that is full of poppers, as you can see here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 poppers there, plus the 2, 4 up here. So you've got 16 poppers. This would be one that you could look pretty comfortable into as Dromai, and you can drag that game out to its natural conclusion where you've, pitch stacked your Chromai Miragai set, that type of game state. That's the one you would want to play towards if you were playing as Dromai. Maybe I'll make a video on that as well. There's so much to do, everybody. So many things to talk about. And finally, the one Briar, the Nathan Crawford special. It's Briar. Spoiler alert, it's just Briar. It's got the quick successions. It's got Path of Same Ends. It's got the upgrades, Rush of Powers in here as well. Even Stinging Sprite. All of the upgrades you would expect to see from Omens of the Third Age, plus the best, the best of the best. The greatest hits, if you will, in Lightning Press, in Burn Up Shock. This deck still goes. It still goes fast. It does have to make some changes or maybe just be played in a specific way to face down the likes of, this right here, this heavy Guardian meta. But you know what? I think Briar is still good. I think Briar is still good. It's still one of the decks that you have to be aware of. And we're still in a pretty good spot across both formats. CC was incredible to watch, and it's looking like the showdown data is proving that the meta can be adjusted to. And if you're looking for adjustments to make into the Silver Age meta, maybe tomorrow's video might be a good one. So check back here tomorrow if you'd like to see what heroes you should play in Silver Age. And then in a couple days, check back if you want an updated Blaze list, specifically the list that I am playing, and I'll go deeper into that in the Metafy guide as well. If you like this type of content, recapping the weekend for you, let me know that in a comment down below. And as always, everybody, thanks for watching.